can't just reschedule. If
I'd like to call the special Board of Education meeting of Tuesday, June 25th to order. Please stand for the pledge of the flag and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Next order of business is audience to visitor. I guess before I ask you to read your script, Alexis, is there anybody who wants to be recognized?
Mr. President, there are no current attendees with their hands raised.
Okay, I'm going to ask, I'm not going to have you read the script, but I'll ask, is there anybody in the boardroom who'd like to address the board? Seeing and hearing none, is there anybody now with a hand raised or would like to address the board?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. Without objection, audience to visitors is closed. Next item on the agenda is the board's evaluation of the superintendent, and discussion of the superintendent's contract and compensation. I'll have you know all 9 members are present, though Mr. Panos, Mr. Halleck, and Mr. Lockhart at this time are all remote, but all 9 are participating. Dr. Hill has the right, based on his contract, to have the evaluation in executive session or in public. Recently, Dr. Hill had indicated he would like to do it in public, and I'll ask Dr. Hill, is that still your desire?
That's correct,
For this
Mr.
evening?
President.
And I'd like to make sure folks know that if either Mr. Panos, Mr. Halleck, or Mr. Lockhart would like to ask questions or be able to speak on an item, hopefully they can use hand raised, or if we don't see you personally or hand raised, you can try to text one of us to make sure that we can recognize you. If I don't, it will not be intentionally done. What was done last year, when again this was done in public, and most of us, other than James and Anthony, were on this board. We had Dr. Hill make his presentation. He's given us some information to all board members prior to tonight, and he may want to flesh that out for us and for the public. And if there's logical place to jump in with questions, I would hope Dr. Hill will permit us to do that. If not, at the end of his presentation, we can ask questions or make some comments on particular items. I would then like us to be able to go back and forth through both the Republicans and the Democrats on general evaluation comments. There will be motions at the end, but especially with some people being remote, I'm hoping that it'll be okay to take about a 15-minute recess before motions are done, so the 2 caucuses will have a chance to talk in private, and then potentially leaders, Mr. Panos, unless he delegates to someone else, and Ms. Taylor might have some type of discussion, and then get back to both of their caucuses, and then we'll meet for the motions part. Is that acceptable to everyone?
Yes.
So 2 rooms have been reserved for us here. Alexis has the superintendent's conference room and room 17, so each caucus can pick one, I think first come, first serve. So at this point in time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Windsor Board and Windsor community. So first, let me just share my opening statement in terms of going through this evaluation for this evening. So my focus for Windsor Public Schools has been and continues to be culture and academic performance. I believe one drives or inhibits the other. When I speak of culture, I am referring to the collective will and efforts of all stakeholders, focusing on doing what's best for all students in all situations. As a result of the culture shift, we will see an improved academic performance on the part of all of our students. A key component to this culture shift is the continued embedding of SEL principles and practices in our curricula and support activities. 2023-2024 school year has been a real year of growth for the district. I'm extremely proud of my staff across the entire district. While it has not been easy or comfortable, staff have consistently stepped up to meet the challenge of growing their students academically. And I'm just going to share this evening some of the things that we've done this year in each category. There are 4 key categories for the public to understand in which a superintendent is recruited and evaluated: educational leadership, organizational management, community relations, and personal and professional qualities and relationships. So I'm not going to read each bullet under each category, as these are public documents and they will be accessible to the public, and the board members have their copies. But I will read some, and I will give board members a chance to ask questions after each section, if they so desire. So the first section, educational leadership. Superintendent of Windsor Public Schools ensures the success and achievement of all students by guiding the development and the implementation of a shared vision of learning, a strong organizational mission, and high expectations for student performance. So we've continued to hold, led by my assistant superintendent, monthly district leadership meetings, the whole district, monthly district leadership meetings are still held with all the leaders across the entire district, and she also holds meetings weekly with the leaders as well. We appointed a principal, Mr. Dana Gagne, to JFK Elementary School. I think that's important to note, some of these important appointments that I have in here, because we need to bring some stability and a sense of calm. I would use that with JFK. It's been a little bit of an upheaval for a few years, and I believe that Mr. Gagne was just the right person at the right time, and I'm just looking forward to seeing, the things that he's going to do with that school, his staff, and his students. We also hired a new PSCS director this year, Ms. Mary Cristofaro. She's someone who has come in. I know it wasn't easy for her, because she's come in doing a lot of assessing, a lot of auditing, but also not just sitting back, but also making changes. And I believe those changes has been for the good of Windsor Public Schools. We've seen and realized some savings, actually, as we've been able to, or with her leadership, restructure various programs within the district and also bring students back from outplacements. And I'm looking forward to seeing her continue to hone that department. We have a new HR manager, Catherine Zager. I'm especially proud. I think Catherine's hardworking, and she's a Windsor alum. So I've said many times at many meetings that I'm absolutely biased to Windsor graduates, and that has not changed. If you're going to say you have a great product, then you prove it by utilizing that product yourself. And we have a new HR specialist, Karen McQuaid, who came to us highly touted from South Windsor. And I believe she's come right in and fit right in, and she comes in, puts her head down. I don't hear much from her, so I'm assuming she is grinding in her office. But I'm looking forward to the HR department kind of coalescing as well. So are there any questions here on the educational leadership piece?
Any questions?
Mr. Fury, I'm sorry. I don't know
Ms.
when.
Cantor?
I don't know when I should make comments.
If it has to do with that section that he
Okay.
just went through.
Okay, I believe it does, and I'll start with, I always want you to succeed in your role as superintendent. I know you know that. And I'm going to always provide you with what I feel is constructive feedback to help you achieve more accomplishments in your role. So I just want to say, I don't know all of these people in Section 1, except for Principal Gagne. So he continues to be a strong asset at Windsor Public Schools, and he has a great deal of expertise due to the positions he has held within Windsor Public Schools and the rec department, and in conjunction with his military service and training. And I've seen him speaking with students, and I think he does a superb job. And I know that school was a problem before, trying to get kids up to par. And on the, I don't know if this will be on the grade, for the grades, the academic scores, on the student academic assessments, the K through 3, the DIBELS, early literacy skills, that's pretty much presents on target. I'm talking in the right area now? Yep, no, yes, no?
Just,
I think that's fine.
yeah.
Okay, and you expect the students' knowledge base to increase from fall to spring, especially in those younger years, because they learn a lot. But grades 4 through 8 are certainly lagging behind noticeably, and that was in the presentation. So only about grades 4 through 8, about 50% of the students are on grade level or above for math and reading. So that means about 50% of the students for math and reading are 1 or more years below grade level, and I'm certainly concerned about that. And when they go into the high school, it's going to be a bigger hardship on them if they're already behind and still trailing more behind. We need to get them up to date. on the current grade levels as much as possible, so they will be successful. I hate to see kids suffer a lot of stress on that, so that was my comment, or comments.
Thank you. I don't know if you'd like to say anything about that at this point. You know, I don't.
They're legitimate
it's up to you.
comments. We're taking the notes. Like, at this point, there's no, if there was something to correct, I would say, oh, that number's this, but no, thank you.
Anybody else? I want to say ditto on your statement about stability and calm with Mr. Gagne and the need in that school for teachers to stay and know that the ship is going in the right direction. And with his background and experience, he was also had been the acting principal. He had come over the year before as well, a couple days a week when he was needed, and it allowed you and your staff to have that confidence that he was the right person for it. And I've known Mr. Gagne for quite some time. Again, he's a Windsor person too, lives in Windsor, kids went through the schools. And Ms. Zager is somebody I knew as she was going through Windsor Public Schools. She's the same age as my daughter, who's come back to Windsor schools as she has. And one of the things that was good, I don't know whether it was Ms. Zager's or Ms. Batchelder's suggestion, she tried to go to as many breakfasts when we had teacher appreciation breakfast, and brought Karen as well to be able to talk to meet some more staff as a new person, and also in an informal setting versus, you know, what's my rights about something in particular, or why did this happen? Why am I not getting something that I thought I had? And I thought that was great. So it's under your leadership. So whether it was Ms. Batchelder's suggestion, yours, or Catherine's on her own, I think that was great to be able to do. And since I do know a lot of teachers, I was able at a few of them breakfast to be able to introduce her to staff. And Ms. Cristofaro, as we know, with her experience in Hartford, when we interviewed her, we knew and approved her selection, and it's great to hear about some of the things going on in special ed. We always love when we can bring students back. If they're able to be back in our schools, that's what we want. That's the best atmosphere for them to be in. We know not every student, that can happen with every student, though. Dr. Hill, to you.
Thank you.
I don't see any hand raised by anyone.
Okay. So section 2 is organizational management. The superintendent of Windsor Public Schools ensures the success and achievement of all students by managing organizational systems and resources for a safe and high-performing learning environment. So there are a number of bullets here, but I will just highlight some of the big ones. School safety, security, and residency officer, needs to say, is on the job. So he is, I know that is important to some board members particularly. He is constantly checking and ensuring that students who do not live here or are not in our town legally, however, with their residency, he is always checking and ensuring that those students are notified and move. And I can just tell you he has not changed. He goes at all different times, early in the morning, weekends, holiday breaks. He does it all. So he's quite vigilant there. We started the year off with lots of energy around the mold issue at Oliver Ellsworth, and it is good to say that that work is underway. Early on in the year, I made sure I started communications with not only the board, but the community, regular communications, to update them on whatever updates we received. Once you get through that political process, it kind of got quiet for a while, which is what happens till contractors and other folks are selected. But now Action Air is working. I actually went into the building yesterday to ensure that folks are busy and working, and I talked to the supervisor. Things are on track according to the supervisor that I spoke with yesterday. So I'm looking forward to that issue being definitely taken care of before teachers and students come back. During this past school year, we've also continued to grow our SEL work in Windsor Public Schools under the leadership of Dr. Mallory. Not only are we continuing to do the work and embedded in Windsor Public Schools culture, academically and socially, but also Dr. Mallory is frequently called upon by the state to present or be a support or a model for other districts across the state. And I've even had the opportunity to be with Dr. Mallory as he's presented on the SEL work that we've done across the country. So as I said 3 years ago when I took on this initiative with SEL, that I wanted Windsor to be at the forefront. We continue to do so. I will keep saying nothing's without warts. However, it's something to be said when you are the forerunner and you set the pace and the standard for others to follow. And that is happening. Our district-wide engagement with Office of Family and Community Partnership. So we've had a shift halfway through the year. We know that Christina had left us and went on to another position, and Dr. Mallory and Gianna Gill stepped up and took on those roles, so we were able to split up the roles and certain responsibilities between the two of them. Of course, Dr. Mallory is having taken the lead role, but they have not missed a beat. I talked to a number of parents over the last 6 months who are just happy with what's going on, and they feel like things are moving. The volunteers they still feel very much appreciated, and that they have not lost a step. And that's what we were looking for, to build on the progress that had been made already. Excuse me. We filled, this is important to note, and I'm going to give Ms. Cristofaro big kudos here, along with our HR department, Ms. Batchelder and her team. But we filled all of our speech language pathologist vacancies. This has allowed the district to save money by discontinuing contracted services with outside agencies. So again, another smart moves on behalf of both those departments between PSCS and HR, and it's brought about a realized savings for us, as well as bringing solid, trained people onto the team in the district. So this may be one of the positions that you'll see and hear about nationally and locally, where they're just always looking to fill these positions. It's just a constant position opening. And our pre-K program is fully accredited again. Just wanted to put that in there. And also, Ms. Cristofaro had brought up the idea, and she followed through. We were able to purchase mobile vision screeners for our elementary school nurses so that we no longer had to rent them. So again, just being more efficient and cost efficient and understanding, what's best for the district. So any questions in that section?
Any questions? Ms. Cantor.
I have a few comments. I just want to say, regarding the mold situation, I would just acknowledge it right away in a positive manner, and then get right back to the president, the rest of the board members, town council, and the town manager, and work it out that way. I wouldn't even talk audience to visitor. I would just do it that way, and then continue doing what you're posting weekly on your school system. That's what I would do on that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I do.
Sorry.
You talked about the nurses under this, the contract,
We talked about
the nursing
buying
staff?
the vision screeners.
I'm sorry.
The vision screeners were purchased and given to each nurse at the elementary schools, each elementary school nurse.
Yeah, I've got some questions on that, and some comments to make. I know that they need 10 nurses to adequately provide standard of care and safe care, and I know there's been a shortage. I've seen it for a number of years. And when you don't have enough nurses to provide the immediate medical care, you have a lot of people have a lot of chronic medical conditions, and you don't want them to have to choose who's going to get the medication first to sustain life. So in order to do that, you need to, I believe, fulfill the obligation of the contract so all students are treated equally for illness. And I know that it was mentioned that the administrators at the school can administer medications, but the administrators at the school do not hold professional licenses issued by the state of Connecticut Department of Health to perform medical assessments, diagnose medical conditions, dispense and administer prescribed medications in a safe manner. Therefore, you leave in the students at risk for injury or death. And I would not want to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this section? Mr. Halleck?
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. First, Dr. Hill, I just want to thank you for making sure that all the speech pathology positions were filled. I think that's great, you know, especially as a person who does stutter and have some speech concerns. That is definitely a great thing, so thank you so much for that. I just wanted to make a comment about a residency officer, and definitely not your fault, Dr. Hill, but a residency officer seems to wear many hats. Definitely has a big job there. So I don't know if, obviously not this coming year, but maybe down the road, we look to get that, to get him some help as well. That way he's not taking on this responsibility all alone. I know that, I believe this year he was checking on over 200 residency issues, and that's a lot. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But thank you so much for getting, again, those speech pathology positions filled. I think that's a great thing, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, HR.
Thank you.
Ms. Christopher. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Back to Dr. Hill.
Next section is community relations. And I'll just quickly mention again, part of the updates and the communications around the mold issue, that's all part of community relations as well. But more importantly, I would say that the coffee talks, they continue to be successful, and they continue to be something that the community appreciates. So we didn't have to have a bunch of bigger crowds this year, which I realize that's because there are issues as they were dealt with. You know, crowds come in when there's a significant issue or they feel there's a significant issue. And once we have our talk about it, they tend to diminish unless there's some other concern. But, you know, anecdotally, people contact me about the coffee talks. I hear about them in different places. I know other communities in the state and across the country, because I share this at my conferences with other superintendents. They've now taken on the coffee talk format. I know my principals have taken on the coffee talk format. So I guess imitation is the highest form of flattery. So I'm flattered. Under the Office of Family and Community Partnerships, we start off the year, I said again, Christina, she did an amazing job with her team, and we're looking forward to this upcoming year, continuing the block party for the community. I believe that it's a thing that brings the community together to help launch the school year as one unified community. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that again. We handed out backpacks to families, so it was very beneficial. Lots of organizations within the town are involved. We'll have some others involved this year as well. Dr. Haiti and I had a meeting with WEF, and looks like WEF will be there represented as well. So I'm really happy that more and more organizations are noticing it, and they would like to be a part as well. In September, we hosted the Windsor Public Schools portion of the Citizens Academy. So I like this. I like when I get to talk to people in the community who typically you won't engage with. It's not always parents. Actually, most of them are very few parents. They might have been parents at some time years past, but you know, you lose touch. So I don't know if I'll get to do that, even though my child's graduated now. I don't know how much losing touch I'll get to do, but at some point when your children leave the school system, you lose touch. And so it's nice that folks come back, or even folks who are just alums and they realize, you know, all that's happening in the school. I will continue to tell the community, you can hear a lot about the school. You know, people talk, communications, but the best thing is come see for yourself. This will lead me to my next point. We've continued to be successful with the Chat and Chill with Super Hill podcast, And, again, that's something, it's funny whenever I'm somewhere and I'm talking about out of, Windsor, out of Connecticut, and people will, you're the guy on the podcast. And I'm like, oh, okay. When you do the podcast, you don't typically listen to yourself, but people are paying attention and it's impactful. And I want to give a shout out to Ms. Gill, who does all of our communications and the production for the podcast, as well as, my coffee talk. We won some more awards. We continue. I know we won CABE awards, but now we won some awards from NSPRA, which is the National School Public Relations Association. So this is not just some little thing. And I was looking through their awards, and out of all the school districts in the entire nation, for us to be mentioned up there in the top 6, that's and getting an excellence award, and not just good standing. So I'm very proud of that, and we want to keep that going. We already have folks who want to be on a podcast already for next year, so it's nice to have the subject matter already lined up for the year coming up. And I've attended, I mentioned CABE, but attended numerous CABE-sponsored events. CABE contacts me regularly. I know we have our board secretary as the CABE president, but I continue to be connected to CABE. It's been an organization that's been supportive and helpful for me for quite a number of years. So as many other of you board members here as well have also attended their conferences, and we look forward to continuing to do that. I've spoken at the legislature on behalf of CABE in various topics that are relevant to us, and I might throw in there as well, CREC as well. And the weekly updates to the board, I continue each Friday, except for 1 or 2, I think you got on a Saturday morning, but to keep the board up to date on what's going on in the district as well. Any questions there?
I have a comment. I think it's very important to continue to stay abreast of unfunded mandates that are being pushed down on by the Connecticut legislature for the board, so we don't have any more big surprises again.
We're going to have some more. I'm sorry. I agree
Burning
with you.
holes in people's pockets, unfortunately.
I think our legislature loves unfunded mandates. It's easy to just say, yes, do it.
It doesn't, a lot of the things that they're doing doesn't make sense because they need to stop and think what the final outcome is. And if it becomes a big burden and we have to fund it, then what do we take away when it comes out to be millions of dollars?
No argument.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Taylor?
That's what we have to vote. So I don't have any questions, but just some things that I wanted to highlight, which is so important, because community relations, that's my thing. And I know for a fact, as being a former PTO, vice president of JFK, we were considering combining them years and years and years ago, if you remember back.
Combine the PTOs?
No, all of the back to school extravaganzas and things.
Okay.
And I just recall, there being pushback. Will that work? It is just so great to see that we all combined, because think about it. If you have a child, you could have a child at OE, you have a child at JFK, you could have a child at Sage and a child at Windsor High, and Windsor High didn't have anything. So this is just the feedback that I've received from the community, and as a parent, it's so great to just do it all together. It's really a splash. I missed last year because I was traveling for work, but I am excited about attending this year, and it does get bigger and better. I also want to give kudos about the communication piece. I often, I really try to engage as many people as possible to follow us on social media. If there's somebody new in town, I'm a media, are you following Windsor Public Schools? And I gotta tell you, and there's no shade to any other district, but their social media, it just isn't as robust. We're timely with the updates. Things get out very, very quickly. And it honestly is helpful because these days that's how people are getting their information. Yes, we continue to do the robocalls. Yes, we continue to do the emails and texts, but oftentimes it's scrolling through Facebook or Instagram where people are really getting that timely information, especially school closures and delays. So I want to give kudos to the communications team, of course, under Gianna Gill's leadership there, through your leadership. And then last but not least, you're absolutely right. Parents come out when there's either something really, really good or really, really bad. And I just recall, when we returned after COVID and there was the, nationwide issue of fighting, and I'm so glad that Captain Kears, Coach Kears now, was able to bring the data that there was more fighting when I was at Windsor High School in the 90s than there is now. So I just love at the end of your weekly things, and I go down and it says 0-0. Thank you so much for just doing all the myth busting that we do. And oftentimes it's by sharing information. People make up a lot of things in their head when they don't know. So I just appreciate the fact that with this here, this really helps do things like pass referendum when people have more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. So I appreciate it. I'm just going to follow up on that point. You said the myth busting. That's actually a thrust of the podcast. And again, I don't ever take anybody's credit on my team. When Ms. Gill said, I want you to do a podcast, and I kept saying no, that's the thrust. Like you think you know Windsor, but now you really know. That's my tagline at the end of each show, because people will say, I know, which will lead right into my next section if there are no other questions.
I don't see any other questions, so no hands raised.
So in this fourth section here, personal and professional qualities and relationships, Superintendent of Windsor Public Schools ensures the success and achievement of all students and staff by modeling ethical behavior and integrity. So for me, one of the things that I say is important, and I talk about it quite a bit, I've said before that I've been accused of talking about Windsor, like when I'm actually on stage in Hartford, working for Hartford. I don't ever remember doing that, but people say, yes, you did. So I guess I did. I know that I am not only the CEO of Windsor Public Schools, but I am also the Chief Marketing Officer as well. So I take that very seriously. I don't take it lightly. And to that end, the things that I do in the community, one of the things I didn't even write, because I try not to write these exhaustive lists with this format, but as a veteran, I know that there are veterans out there who are looking to get disability services, and they just find it very difficult. And so after talking to some parents via one of my coffee talks, so it had nothing to do with the coffee talk, I said, oh, I know someone who that's their job for the state. And so being able to leverage relationships that I have to help others. And so we had a veterans night here. So we had some folks, local folks, come in and speak to the veterans, as well as my good friend Devon, who is, works for the state to help veterans with, their disability filings and, those kinds of things. So I think we had like 8 or 9 people, and there were some folks who didn't get to come, but they received information from those who came. And I continue to stay in touch with many of those folks. So it was a cross section, very surprising. I expected just to get a few guys, but there were actually quite a few women, who were taking care of either in the military themselves or taking care of, a veteran who needed those services. And they were very appreciative that, we helped them connect with someone that could move things along. And so I like being able to do that kind of stuff for people. So it's not just, I tell people, education is not just teaching a particular curriculum. When you're in this role, as I get ready to teach for my 10th year at UConn on Monday morning, prospective administrators, I tell them, you're not just coming in to be the boss. You're coming in to actually help improve people's lives, your students, your staff, and those family members. And you use the connections that you have to do that. So, as I said, I've been teaching for 9 years at UConn. Year 10 will start Monday morning. I'm looking forward to it. I also serve as a mentor to superintendents. I believe Ms. Cantor asked me that either last year or near the beginning of the year about do I mentor. So I had said no for a few years because, again, we were coming out of COVID and I didn't want to do it, even though I had been asked. And so for the last year, I actually said yes. So I had 2 superintendent mentees. Very proud to say that both of them did a great job throughout the year. And one I'm even more proud of, she applied, interviewed, went through this crazy process, and she is now the superintendent of Springfield Public Schools. So very proud. And of course, if you know me, I don't let go of folks. So I'm here as a support and helper. And I've been asked again by Central Connecticut State University to be a mentor to another superintendent candidate. And then UConn called and asked me, that's a separate program from the one I teach in, to be a mentor. So I'm like, wow, like I must have something that people want. I don't know what it is, but so I'm really proud because I know even though Terrell Hill's doing it, I'm representing Windsor Public Schools. And they also come here, and what I hear from these mentees is all the good things that we do. And I like hearing that because I told you I'm kind of tough. I focus on all the things that need to be fixed all the time. And sometimes you need to hear, there are a lot of things going well. I know my team tries to tell me, but, I could get pretty deaf to stuff like that. So it's nice to have outside people come. I continue to do speaking engagements and panel engagements, not as many because it just takes a lot. But, anytime I get to share, the things that we do here, I want to. I'm really more concerned about promoting my team members to go out and speak so they can put themselves out there and, see what it's like, right? People want to know if there's something in education that folks feel is working, they want to hear it. And I know we have some incredible people here in Windsor, so I want them out there talking. I've done it for 30-something years. Not that I'm going to stop speaking, sadly, for some people, right? I'm not going to stop. But I would like to help other folks. That's the beauty of being a leader, is helping other folks realize their leadership potential. And I was also nominated, and I know they're going to vote me in and make me do it, to be the vice president of the Hartford Area Superintendents Association for this upcoming year, which means they're going to stick me in the presidency the following year. That's what that means. It just means more work. But I think it's, I wouldn't do it if I thought it wasn't valuable or necessary. And when Dr. McCary said he was nominating me, I told him, I said, I appreciate that. He says, you got a lot of people respect you, Dr. Hill, and, we want to see you help grow and move the organization. So I'm going to represent Windsor and do my best with that. And I will also serve as the chair of a newly formed committee under CAPS, which is Leaders of Color Committee. So they've never had a committee. And I know the president, Ms. Rabinowitz, and I have had this conversation some months back. And so that's going to happen for this upcoming year. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, any questions? I see James.
Just some comments, if I could.
Yep.
Yeah, so I waited for all four because I have four sections that I ponder when it comes to leadership and efficacy, and they're not the same four, but it doesn't matter. Life's a crisscross. Four things for me, right, matter from a leadership perspective. One is what I call walking the line. So walk the factory floor, go visit the troops. When the guy who turned around the Panama Canal turned around, he walked down in the mud and talked to everybody about how things are going on. So one of the things I really appreciate is your coffee talks and all the connection with the community. To me, that's huge because it's really easy as a leader to get isolated, and the only way to avoid that is to just be on the ground all the time. So that's outstanding. It also works two ways too, because even as a parent, I can get involved anytime I've needed to. I wish I had more time. But the school has found a way to get me in. So getting parents in is part of that too. So I think that's excellent. The second thing is you judge all leaders by their staff. It matters. And one of the things I love is the freestyling ability of the principals and the teachers that I've seen. There's a lot of autonomy, which counts for a lot. All the way down to the teacher's level. Just a small example is my son hates doing math problems, but he's really good at math. And so he made a deal with a certain teacher, who I won't name so nobody will get in trouble, that he didn't have to show his work on the condition that if he got it wrong, he got no credit. And so they worked out that deal, and so he didn't have to do the work, and he got a lot of right answers because the kid's good at math because he lives with me, but he also has a talent for it. But it's just that kind of ability to freestyle is really valuable, and a really constrained organization wouldn't allow for that, and I think that's very powerful. You then have to have the kind of people that actually use it effectively because it can go awry too, but I think it's been very effective from my observations, and again, mostly with my own kids, but I'm looking around and I'm seeing it. The third thing I was looking for is a fine-grained plan, right? One of the things I always hated in any situation is grand strategies that never deliver. And so I've said before, one of my favorite ones is the whole data plan where it's down to the individual level. I know there's a lot of work to implement that and it's still in a state of change, but that kind of thing where you're executing down to the individual student and what's your plan for that exact student in the next short period of time is huge. The other thing I look for is the ability to pull everybody up no matter where they are. So I always say, if you have a kid whose potential is 95th percentile and he's performing at 85th percentile, that's a failure. Even if he is at 85th percentile. Likewise, if you had a kid at 5%, you can pull him up to 20%. That's huge. But you have to have different systems and mechanisms in place. There's no such thing as average in my kind of view of how people work in general. And the idea that we can have systems that pull the kids up no matter where they are is huge, and I've seen that in a lot of different situations. The fourth one is finances. Even with the budget process we just had, it was justified all the way. That minutia of going through 80, 90 pages, whatever, huge. That's valuable. I will say we nailed the voters' will. One failure, one pass, all with tight margins. That tells you something. Our job, in my mind, is to put something in front of the voters that they have to look at and say, hey, we're the final authority here. And I think the process worked very effectively. And I love that you're fighting the unfunded mandates. So those are the four categories I have, and I think you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Anyone else regarding Section 4? And then I am going to go back and forth with general comments people want to make regarding any of the things Dr. Hill presented or things that we've observed ourselves. And then I will ask for a recess prior to any motions being made. So I'm going to try to do it back and forth. Since James just, do you want another bite at the apple?
No, I was
Okay.
freestyling. Thank you.
I'll go to Anthony.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Obviously, this is my first year on the board, and I don't have kids in the school system, so it's been interesting. I will say, this is probably at a lack of transparency, too much transparency, but one of the things I told a lot of folks when I ran for the Board of Ed, and they asked me why I would do that, is when I first moved to Windsor, I was at a friend's house in West Hartford, and they're like, oh, Windsor's a beautiful town. Too bad the schools suck. And I thought there's no way that could be accurate, right? Like, that can't possibly. And then you look at, school system ratings and things like that, that basically just like redlining with extra steps in today's society. But having dived into the process and seen the passion and the quality of the educators and your staff and the way that you guys have been leading them, and now seeing it have demonstrable results in your teaching and education, I'm just really thankful that we have you guys in place and have you guys leading our school system, and we can support you guys, because I really think that is going to continue to pay dividends and is going to continue to see the results. And even if we don't necessarily see it overnight, I definitely feel it when I walk into those buildings. So I just appreciate you guys and think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Ms. Cantor.
I do have a comment on your contractual obligations. You are required to send a report to the board, and what you sent was a program. And if I was a student and I turned that in to a professor or high school, what I received, I would have gotten a 0 on it. So I think we're due the report, not a program, for when you attend a seminar or anything like that, according to your contract.
Anything else?
There was one other thing in the contract, too. On it's outside activities under B. It said, provide that these memberships are approved in writing in advance by the board president. I don't recall ever receiving anything on that either from you, Mr. Fury.
Are you talking about for memberships?
It's B, under outside activities. The board shall pay the costs
Excuse
of
me,
the superintendent.
what section are you looking at?
6, outside activities, and then it's B. I can show. Provide that these members are approved in writing in advance by the board president. I never received anything.
Just as a point of information or clarity, is the intention to go through the superintendent's contract during this process, or is the intention to give our general comments on his
Yeah,
performance?
this was more of a general comment, but you can make that comment that you did not receive.
Okay.
Can I address that?
And I never received a report. I received a program.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You want to do it on your, for clarity, do you want to make those two
Sure.
comments?
Under the contract obligations, it's on number 6, outside activities, and it says, and the board will expect periodic reports on these activities, and I received a program, not a report, And then on B, under outside activities, it said, provided that these memberships are approved in writing in advance by the board president. I never received any documentation on this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wallison.
Yeah, so I'd just like to take a moment to focus on the macro and not the micro. It just seems incredibly petty to me to focus on such small things in the contract. I'm not sure, and I'd just like the public to understand that I firmly believe that is incredibly petty. I believe, Dr. Hill, that you have upheld the standard and you have moved the district forward in incredible ways. We go to these CAPE conferences in which we're not sitting here and talking about Section 6, whatever, in the contract and turning in a report or not, but what we're talking about are the important things that we're doing in districts. And when we breaking down into these small groups, because I've been with you in multiple of these small groups, people are asking us questions and seeing how we are able to do the things we're doing. And these are districts oftentimes that are more well-funded than we are, that you would think would be able to have the resource to conquer some of these issues at a more efficient way. But as you understand, money is not always everything. So I would really like to just affirm that again. We are doing something very incredible, especially with the social and emotional work that we're doing here in Windsor. We're pretty much paving the way under your leadership, and I'm very appreciative of that also. It's no secret that I am campaigning for another office right now, and I have had the opportunity to see how a lot of other towns do business. I've had opportunity to see how a lot of other superintendents do business, and I'd like to say even the way we just prepare our budget here in town is much different than a lot of things you can find across the entire state. And I'm sure our CAPE president here can attest to that as well. We have a very, very detailed process in which we go into these things with in depth and a fine understanding by our superintendent and a high level of transparency and understanding. So I would like to commend you for that, sir. I believe you have been doing a great job here as well. When you get a leader, you get someone who has personality, and you get the personality and you get the practice of a person, all right? So we're going to have Dr. Hill's personality. You may like the personality, you may not like the personality. That's your prerogative, but you cannot deny the practice. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Mr. Halleck?
Thank you, Mr. President. No, I think there's been some, good and bad here. As I mentioned, I think it's great that the speech pathologist positions were filled. I'm glad our test scores, as we just got the report on at our last meeting, those were going in the right direction. Not obviously where we would like to be, but we definitely want to get better. I'm sure we could all agree to that. We always want to improve, and I feel we can get better in the future. But they are going in the right direction, so that's a good thing. To Ms. Cantor, I believe, mentioned the reports in the contract. Would have been great to get a report along with that schedule of activities that were going on. And it is in the contract. A contract's a contract, so everyone has to abide by that. I think going forward, if we get those, get that on the straight and narrow, I think that would be good and acceptable. If we were to get that, Principal Gagne obviously was a great choice. Very happy with him over at JFK there. For me, it's a mixed review at this point. But Dr. Hill, you have done some good things. We had some incidents this year at our schools, but, you know, hopefully we can, you know, get that, keep those as low as we possibly can do as well. So, and for now, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Dr. Hill, I just want to say thank you for another successful academic year. In your line of work, there's always the good, the bad, and the ugly that you have to deal with on a very daily basis. And at times, you have to make decisions at times that may not be popular or have any fanfare, but your job is to run the district. And I believe you've done a good job at that. You've led us out of COVID. You've explained to us during the COVID process as well as coming out of COVID exactly the vision of what that would look like and some of the challenges that we would have. I believe you've done a good job in articulating that through your budgeting process. I do believe you have articulated that through your communications, your outreach. I've been to numerous conferences with you. I've been to numerous events with you at the CGA. I've been to events where you have spoken on panels, and you are just well respected across the board. People say that you are tough, firm, but fair, and that you are really a people's person and you really care about your team. So I've seen that in action. You've definitely taken some bumps from the board for some of your positions, but the one thing that we can say as a board that you stand firm on what you believe is going to be best for the kids of Windsor Public Schools as well as your staff. I really, really like the fact that the communication piece has definitely been recognized across this state. I like the fact that our budgeting process, to Mr. Wilson's point, is definitely head and shoulders above a lot of districts within the state of Connecticut. We definitely take the time to go through our budget line by line, and we hold you accountable for line by line of what the vision is and how it ties back to our goals and how it ties back to some of the things you think we're struggling in. So I truly appreciate that. Overall, I'm not here to be friends with the superintendent. In my role here, my job is to make sure that the superintendent is doing his or her job and to make sure that we provide the appropriate resources, we provide the appropriate curriculum and policies, and to allow said superintendent to actually micromanage the schools, and we provide you with that macro management support. So I do ask that you continue to work with us. We are, the majority of us, or all of us, we're not educators by trade. We do seek guidance from you. We will continue to seek guidance from you as the superintendent of this district. That is one of your primary roles, to help us stay within the guardrails of legalities and making sure that we're providing high quality education to our kids. Continue to provide leadership with the town manager and to make sure that the town manager understands exactly what you're looking for from that side of the ledger as far as actually providing the resources to this district. I just want to say thank you. Continue to do a good job. You will continue to have good days. Sir, you will have some bad days. And that's just the nature of the job. That's the nature of all our jobs that we have. But continue to be the face, continue to keep smiling, and keep being the leader that you are, and guide this ship.
Thank you. Mr. Panos, I don't know if you can hear us.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. You're up.
Okay. Well, I feel, Dr. Hill has done some good things. We've made some good choices, I think, in hiring the special ed for pupils and personal abilities director and new JFK principal. I see the iReady shows some improvement in that, that's good. I like the initiatives that are shown here, improving, the explicit teaching, paper and pencil, and limiting use of technology and things of this nature that would highlighted in the presentation in the last meeting. The membership in the various organizations showed that he's recognized as a speaker. He's active out in the public. He's brought back, he's brought back students, special ed, who were outplaced, saved some money. And he, like I say, communicates to the public, frequently through chats and coffee talks. So, and he's a forceful, person. But though the iReady shows improvements, we still have a lot to go, and we're there with, third through eighth. iReady results for math and reading still as 50 to 60% for one or more years behind. So this is, this is an area that is important. So it says that we're not doing well there. I like the emphasis on, there's emphasis on, you do some FDL here, that's good, but there seems to be a lot of emphasis on it. There should be some consideration, I think, of studies that have criticisms of having instruments focus a lot on their emotions. They must be able to carry on after all, rather carry on with the task at hand without, refocusing on their emotions. So I would like to see something, some sort of balance there. I feel that there are many times that there's inadequate detailed description of fight. I'm glad he mentioned also, and that we are told how many fights there are, but we're not told much in the way of details, consequences of it, and that affects policy. Now of course, the worst, there were a few other incidents, like the student left behind in the wheelchair, doing fire drill, that was quite upsetting, that, eventually was taken care of by walkie-talkie. It seems to be take a lot of time. So that didn't go well. Now, but I would like to focus on things, of course, this has to do with, one with the OE parent public criticism, Mosley. Dr. Hill, he seemed to have a serious problem with the criticism. The parent apparently put something up and Dr. Hill, said it wasn't true. She came to this audience of visitors and criticized them.
Point of order.
Hold on, Mr. Panos.
Point of order. I don't know what any of that has to do with his, the superintendent's evaluation based on something that is hearsay. If it was that serious, you would have stopped doing what you were doing and gotten involved, but you walked right past the situation. I was actually a person that was involved. So I'm just going to ask you to, through you, Mr. President, to ask him to stop commenting on things that he did not actually experience. Thank you.
I'm simply pointing out here one aspect of leadership that we were all able to witness, and that is to be able to control.
But Mr. Panos, excuse me, Mr. Panos, so to the point of information raised by Ms. Taylor is, I think you can say what your perception is. Your perception of what happened is very different than most of us who were actually there. So,
well, I was actually in the room and observed when he came in. So that's not so.
Point of order. Yeah. Point of order, Mr. President.
hold on, Mr. Panos.
I think the reality of it is that if we're going to talk about the performance of the superintendent, we should be keeping it in terms that are a little more general, not necessarily diving down into specific things where we have contentious or even legal obligations around the kind of comment we're having.
I mean, I think if you, Mr. Panos, if you could be more general and regarding what your concern is, I don't think we need to be going back and forth here on specifics that could get us into a problem area. So,
Well, you know, it is my responsibility to report and to things that I know, that I saw. And to use that as a point of judgment. I'm really, I think that this is an area of improvement that he needs to take, that Dr. Hill needs to take seriously. There's the entire incident with the Windsor request, my simple request for a report, and the reaction that it included the hiring of a personal attorney, and the accusation that I was discriminating and all this sort of thing.
Mr. Panos, I think you're.
That's why I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Because if you're speaking, then I will speak. And I get to say the truth. And I'm going to chair it now. So that's why I wanted it public.
Okay.
Point of order.
So
I think you should let Mr. Panos finish up.
he's
talking.
repeating himself.
Your point of order is
Point of order. Point of order.
Hold on, Mr. Panos.
you're not an executive person on this board.
You keep
Why am I
yelling.
being interrupted?
Because you keep repeating
Because I
yourself.
said point of order. We've been put on notice, Mr. Panos.
I challenge it.
Okay, then through the chair, then while the chair chooses what happens, you need to go on mute while he decides what he's going to do. Thank you. And this is me speaking, the vice president of the board. Thank you, minority leader. Thank you, minority leader. Through you, Mr. Chairman.
I challenge this point of order. You need 2/3.
So I'll go to my parliamentarian.
Mr. President, you have not made a ruling that I can ascertain, so for Mr. Panos to make a challenge of your ruling, I don't understand what your ruling is at this point for him to challenge. So I do recognize, I don't recognize because I'm not the chair. Mr. Taylor has a point of order. You need to rule upon that. And then followed by, there's a point of order that Ms. Cantor has also raised after that. So I think you need to triage them in that order.
Anthony did one before her.
Do you want to, back to Ms. Taylor, do you want to explain further your point of order so that I can rule on it?
I think what we're looking for is a ruling. She explained herself. I think, is the point of order upheld or is it dismissed? I think that's what we're looking for from you, Mr. President.
Would you speak up, please?
Mr. President, if I may, if I'm wrong, please correct me, Mr. Vice President. Your point of order is that you would like Mr. Panos to stop speaking on things that he was not involved with. No.
Ms. Lockhart, I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Be closer to
I think the point of order, there were two times that there were two different issues that I think that you have. One had to do with a hallway where you were not present. The second, I think that you're bringing up, has to do when Dr. Hill went into room 17. So since you were not in the hallway, you really can't say definitively what transpired. So if you want to make your comments regarding what you saw in room 17, I would
And
say.
Mr. President, and my point of order was that we shouldn't be making comments on that at all.
You can't.
And it came before Jill's.
I did not.
Yeah.
I stand corrected,
Yeah.
Mr. President. I didn't realize that he had a point of order.
Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize.
That's, sorry, no, it's okay.
Okay.
It just, Ayana's point of order was, sorry, Madam Vice President's point of order was that we shouldn't be talking about things we aren't part of. My point of order is that, as the board, we should not be discussing things that we've been legally told we should not be discussing in open session, and that we are putting ourselves up to legal action by continuing the discussion.
And I don't know if she knows the definition of point of order.
Or we vote.
Yeah, I don't know if that's, there's,
I haven't made a ruling
He
yet.
hasn't made a rule.
We need to speed this along, we're wasting time. I don't got time to waste.
Can I offer a thought on this? I mean, I don't know how this works. I think, well, just if I could, I'm the point of order. I mean, specificity is what can get you in trouble here. I mean, the right of the board members to express a concern is different from getting into facts of the matter. So one can say, I feel such a situation was inappropriate or not good behavior. That's an expression of your own feelings. And if you want to say that and assert that for your peers here, that's different than saying fact A, fact B, fact C. I don't know if that would help kind of,
I think we
Spread the
need to
needle.
have the president make a ruling on whether or not we should be discussing any of those issues, period, because of the legal counsel that we've been given. And I think you recall, Mr. Madison, like we were given strong legal counsel that we should not be discussing this in open session.
Yeah, and so the ruling I'm going to make, I think I've let this go on longer than I would have liked, but at this point, I'm going to rule that your comments are out of order.
So, all right, so you're going to say, oh, Mike, there's no criticism permitted on this.
No, I think
I would like to point out, one of the
Mr. President, I would like to appeal the ruling from the chair.
Okay? Mr. Parliamentarian, Mr. Lockhart.
That's a non-debatable motion, and it goes directly to a vote. And so you vote in the opposite. If you vote yes, you are you're voting to. If you vote no, you have to vote no to uphold the ruling.
If people understand that voting no means you're upholding the ruling of the chair, voting yes, you disagree with the chair. Can we have a roll call vote?
Wait a minute. No.
What do you mean?
So this is a simple majority.
Correct.
This is a simple majority to uphold to oppose the ruling of the chair.
Let's just call it.
Correct.
Can you speak into the mic?
Yeah, he's just articulating that it's a majority vote whether to uphold the ruling of the chair.
Whoa.
What was that?
Jeremy's mic.
He needs to renew.
Mr. Halleck is, so, yeah,
Could you just call the vote?
yeah.
So,
I don't understand what's
have
going
it.
on, so.
So what's going on is because the ruling's been challenged, right? It's now has to go to a vote, and we have to vote to either yes, challenge the ruling, or no, uphold the ruling. It's a simple majority rules vote. So if you're voting no, that means you're agreeing with the president that the comments are out of order. Thank you.
everybody understand?
Can we not do a roll call?
Miss Alexis, call the roll.
We're wasting time for fun.
Yes, so
Jill Cantor,
Yes.
David Fury,
No.
Jeremy Halleck,
Yes.
Anthony King,
No.
Leonard Lockhart, James Madison,
Abstain.
Paul Panos,
yes.
Ayanna Taylor,
No.
Nathan Wolston,
No.
That's 3 yes, 5 no, 1 abstain.
So the ruling stands.
Is he done?
Mr. Panos, on any other matters?
Well, I suppose you should repeat this. It's the matter of the answer. I received a letter, the letter addressed to the board about me by Dr. Hill, Dr. Hill, and essentially he said that that he was being treated unfairly by me by making a request for support. And I feel that the entire incident, where all I did was simply make a request which was consistent with his contract, in which he wasn't fulfilling his contract. He insisted that I knew that Dr. Cook attended these insert meetings when there is no evidence at all. Requested for this, there were no emails from Dr. Cook about his going to these conferences. And indeed, two presidents who were there, who were here with Dr. Cook, as said Mr. Lockhart and Mr. Fury, had any idea either. They didn't know that he was going to the answer. And so he assumed, though, that because Dr. Cook said that it was in his self-evaluation, that I must have paid attention to this enough to be able to know what it was that he was going. And of course, it was just that all he did was make a very passing reference to it in his written self-evaluation on an obscure page, an obscure clause in an unimportant page of his self-evaluation, which is about 25 pages long. And I didn't know it, like I say, and neither did any of the others. I requested information from all my previous board members in my pocket, but neither Mr. Lockhart nor Mr. Fury could remember that either. In fact, to show you that how this sort of thing can get by, I mean, even these two gentlemen did not even know about the provision in the superintendent's contract, if I can go judge by the way they reacted last June about it. It shows that here they were signing an important contract, and they passed through that, and they must have read it, but it passed that part of the contract which said that the superintendent can only attend. We agreed to pay for Hartford Area Superintendents Association and a few others, the CAPE and CAPS and things of this nature, but any other, it said, would have to require the president's signature, and that, of course, would require the president's company board. But here is an important contract, and here are actual presidents and board members, not even being aware of it, and you probably were aware of it.
Mr. Panos, if you could try to wrap up, because we've had this discussion in previous years. Both Mr. Halleck and Ms. Cantor have raised that part of the contract.
Okay, but here's the point was that I think I can state that his letters and his email made letter on this class, which I did not bother to get into, in which he copied, again, his personal attorney, was a matter of intimidation of a board member. And I can only assume that this is how he reacts, and that this shows a lack of, he has some learning to do to be a good leader, because if you do this to a board member, I can only imagine what happens when an employee, someone that reports to him, disagrees.
Point of order. This feels very unprofessional and is personal.
Mr. Panos, if you could hold, there's a point of order.
This feels like it's going beyond the evaluation of the superintendent's performance and is getting into very personal pieces of the superintendent's personality, which, while somewhat related, I can understand to performance. It's also including a lot of conjecture and hearsay. And again, I really think we're leaning ourselves up against into legal ramifications there.
Pardon me, but this is part of the evaluation. Is how the superintendent treats his own board member.
But Mr. Panos, I think you've made your point, so.
Yeah, I think that, Mark, we're not privy to this, so his comments are kind of out of order too. So let's move on and have it vote.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am appreciative of the hard work happening in the district, Dr. Hill, through you. As a parent, first, and then second, as a board member, and currently as the vice chair, I've lived through 2 different superintendents, and I was also part of your process and hiring. So just some things that I want to point out for some folks that need it to be pointed out. Social emotional learning, I don't know what study on the face of the planet that I would ever believe that would say that the carry-on method is something that we need to tell our children to do when they're going through emotional turmoil and post-traumatic stress of a global pandemic. The carry-on method, if that actually worked, then you wouldn't see adults losing their minds in 2024. I am of the opinion as a parent that the carry-on method is not something that I would ever allow my child to accept as good teaching. Social emotional learning isn't just about your emotions, it's how you're able to deal with all the things coming at you and still be able to be successful and to learn. So I just want to make that clear for anyone who doesn't know the reasoning behind social emotional learning and why we have these things in place and why they are working. You cannot talk about the growth in the district without at least tipping your hat to the social emotional learning that we're doing in the district. You can't have one without the other. It's impossible. I want to also highlight the bringing students back from out of district placements for all the reasons why parents are deciding that Windsor Public Schools is where they want their children to be. The opposite is happening in districts all around the nation. People have choice, and even though I believe that parents should have choice, your home district should be, your nexus district should be top tier. And I believe that Windsor is getting there. Again, after a global pandemic, it is difficult to gauge what it could have looked like had we not had that gap. Success in education is a marathon. It is not a sprint. You cannot take apart data and only take out the pieces that make sense to you. It's going to take some time to see the growth that people want to just happen overnight. Not every child learns the same. Not every family is going through the same things. And as the state brings down different things that we have to do, all these mandates, that means that the trajectory that children were on could be altered, and now they have to pivot and be agile in the first and second grade. So I really appreciate that under your leadership, that we're seeing that even under a lot of the state mandates, we've been able to be agile, our educators have been able to be agile, and our students are progressing even though we keep pushing back the finish line on them. Our superintendent, Dr. Hill, is highly educated, highly sought after. He's accessible, accountable, and accurate with his details. He's been able to hire folks underneath him to do the work. How could we not lift the fact that Dr. Noah Haiti has been able to do the things that she's been able to do, and he's been allowing her to do so? All the things that we've been able to see our educators put in place to make sure that our students have the best talented educators in the room. Thank you, Danielle Batchelder. We are making sure that our educators are coming here and want to be here and stay here. We are bringing in subject matter experts from Hartford. We're bringing in people who know what they're doing. And I promise you, everybody behind you besides Dr. Hill, you have no credentials to even judge this man. You can't compete. You can't. And so when we're lifting up the great things, to come behind that with petty, small, little he said, she said, it's giving petty, it's giving juvenile, it's giving beneath my time. I don't have time for it. Exactly. So I'll end with this. Well, I'm actually the chief marketing officer of this district. I love this district. I graduated from Windsor High School. My babies are here. I could have sent them anywhere. I chose to graduate from Windsor High School. I chose to come back. I chose to sit at this dais. I have skin in the game. This man is doing the work we hired him to do. And as I said, because I wanted to make sure that I quoted myself, on the evening that we voted you as our next superintendent, March 9th, 2021, that point still remains today for me. There is no amount of privilege that can stop greatness, Dr. Hill. Do not allow people to minimize all the work that you've done for years. They could never. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think much of what Dr. Hill talked on is specific points, and what many have said I follow up with. And just looking at a few things, playing off of Ms. Taylor about picking good people and allowing them and having the faith in them of who they've selected not to be micromanaged, to be able to know that the people that Dr. Hill has brought in or promoted are capable of doing that without having to be watched every minute. I think it's great that we're looking at something Mr. Madison had mentioned in one of his 4 points, where we look at data, where we look not only moving all students. So if a student is doing very well but could do better, that we're still looking at that. Are they growing, test after test, time after time? And so we're treating all students as individuals, which is what we need to do. And I know much of the work that Dr. Haiti has done with the teachers of following up, and it is a lot of work that ends up falling on teachers, but that's where we need to be. And I know when we've talked about where our growth is, where we are academically, the statement was made by Dr. Haiti, we want to be at least to the state average and then go beyond the state average. But you have to first get there. And so as Ms. Taylor had indicated, we see articles every day in the paper about trauma. We see all these things about learning loss. So we're not going to be where we were prior to 2020 right now. That's not going to happen. It's not happening probably anywhere. As far as SEL goes, I'm a big supporter of it myself. I was supported that we not cut SEL positions, and there's so many different parts of it. A big part of it is self-awareness and self-management. So with those types of skills and also social awareness and empathy, and so it's all the right types of things that I believe we want our students to be able to be focusing in on, and teachers to be able to realize. So I couldn't be happier. And as Dr. Hill has indicated, Dr. Mallory is also well searched for his expertise in presenting to others. And as again mentioned by Dr. Hill, we are a model for the state, and we were right from the get-go of what we were trying to do. Again, thank you. It was mentioned before about the speech pathologists. I know, nurses and speech pathologist positions are often very hard to get, and we pay an extraordinary amount of money when we're talking about contracting out those kind of skilled positions. So to be able to have those on site, to be able to bring back students to our district, that's great. Dr. Hill has mentioned many times he does not want to go back and forth on social media, but he's made himself available. That's what we want to know. Are you available? And if a parent wants to come in, I've had some of these discussions, he'll say, come on in. Let's just talk one-on-one. So that's not being denied anybody. I am on some social media sites, but I usually don't comment on anything. But at least I know what the chatter is in the district if people aren't calling me directly. Again, great recognition on the coffee chats and for, again, hiring good people, and Dr. Mallory and Ms. Gill having to take on additional roles when Christina Morales left the district. So kudos to those. And the chat and chill talks, again, award-winning. I've heard comments from people about the Citizens Academy. I think that's great that we have the Citizens Academy. This year it was sold out. In fact, one person got in from the waiting list because I had a friend of mine who said, seems like some other people really want to go. I'll go another time. And again, they got a tour of Windsor High School, and people were amazed at what they saw and the tour that they took. Again, Dr. Hill with our town manager going out and informing residents in different parts of the town of what the budget would look like, what that would mean. He's, to me, he's hitting on all cylinders. So I'm very happy with his performance in the district. We've talked before, too, about vocational opportunities. That was something else that both sides of the aisle were interested in. And Dr. Haiti had the initiative starting with Central. I know there's a couple classes. If they take their first class at Windsor High School, they may be able to take a second class at Windsor High School and a course that's been approved by Central. So we are moving that way. I know there's been initiatives, too, that I know Bonnie Feynman has been starting to be involved with our Chamber of Commerce, of trying to make more connections for jobs, letting our kids intern or partnership and really get real life experience with businesses here in Windsor. So I applaud Dr. Hill in that effort of the importance. I know Dr. Haiti has gone to many manufacturing businesses because I'm always looking in my robotics hat for those connections with local businesses. So that's the only comments that I have. Unless Dr. Hill has something to say, I'd like to see if we could take a 15, Mr. Wollaston?
I just have a quick question. It's my understanding that we all pretty much know how we want to vote, or what we would like to see. Could we minimize the 15 minutes to 5 minutes, perhaps?
I'll look to Mr. Panos and Mr. Halleck. The hope is that you would be able to have a conference call with Mr. Madison and Ms. Cantor. They have a separate room from where the Democrats will be. And what's your thought about the time you may need before coming back? Mr. Panos?
Yeah, so you expect now what?
I think what we had done last year, that you guys would, your two groups would caucus, potentially you and Ms. Taylor, or if you wanted to delegate someone that's in the room here, just so we know where folks are, and then we'll go through whatever motions people make, but just to try to have a little organizational meeting.
Can I support Nathan, and can I move that we skip the break and move to a vote? I don't know
let's
that's
go to
gonna
a vote.
change anyone's opinion.
Okay, if both caucuses would like to go right to a vote,
Why don't we do that?
okay?
Sit Dr. Hill get the 5 minute break.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break?
All right, 5
5-minute
minutes.
break. If you guys want to go and talk,
Motion withdrawn. Since I did use that language.
anybody wants to go and chat?
All right, now you should be getting juice.
Because my phone's hasn't been charging.
Sorry about that.
So if you can
So I talked to,
or the store, they were conference rooms. They're both open.
hey, Dave,
Raynard,
my phone wasn't charging here, it wasn't charging because James didn't turn on his PC. So I got 7%.
glad it wasn't the other caucus that was
Well-
doing it. At least it was within your caucus.
Well, I want
Ms. Cantor, are you also?
You guys set? Paul had never sent them.
Sorry, I'm going to have things work, but yes. Yeah.
We are back in session at 9:09, and the next process here is there's going to be certain motions made, and there'll be opportunities for discussion on the motions if anybody wants to, and we will then have a roll call vote, Alexis, on each one. So I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the President of the Board of Education be authorized to work with the Board of Education attorney to extend the contract of the superintendent by 1 calendar year from July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2027, staying within the 3-year limitation.
Is there a second?
If there is no second from Mr. Panos, I will second the motion.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Lockhart. Is there any discussion from the Democratic caucus? Any discussion from Republican members? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Nay.
I misvoted, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I made a mistake anyway, because it's going to be a roll call vote.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was wondering.
My bad.
That was casual.
Alexis?
Jill Cantor.
No,
David Fury.
Yes.
Jeremy Halleck.
No.
Anthony King.
Yes.
Leonard Lockhart. James Madison.
Yes.
Paul Panos.
No.
Ayanna Taylor.
Yes.
Nathan Wolston.
Yes.
That is 3 yeses. Nah. 6 yeses, 3 noes, 0 abstentions.
Motion carries 6-3-0. Is there another motion?
I move to change the language in the superintendent's contract under sections D and E, quote, fringe benefits to state that he can decline coverage and take 100% of the current costs.
Any discussion? Is there a second?
If there's no second from Mr. Panos, I will second. Second.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Lockhart. Discussion, anything from the Democratic caucus? Taylor? No. Any discussion from Republican caucus or any questions they may have?
I have questions. I have no clue what this means. So can you elaborate on like, what is the financial impact in terms of how this behaves? So I got your numbers, right, that you sent out in the email. But what does that mean that you can decline coverage and take 100% of the current costs? Yeah, I think it's.
Ms. Batchelder?
Or
if you
do
could
it.
Sure.
Explain it a little bit more.
So the allocation rates for 24-25 school year for our medical and dental insurance came in back in May. And for a family plan, it is $2,887 a month. So that dollar amount is what the total is 100% of the premium. So then you break it out to employer and employee share of the premium. The employer pays a percentage and the employee pays a percentage. So what I did was I took what the employer, Windsor Board of Ed, would pay for a family plan for Dr. Hill for a year, which would equate to, on the medical side, $26,679. And on dental, it equates to $943.17. For a total annual Board of Ed premium for Dr. Hill for a family plan of $27,622. You then, per contract, add the HSA deductible, the high deductible plan. We fund 50% for all employees, so that adds another $2,000 because our high deductible for a family plan would be $4,000. The employer puts in 50%, which is $2,000. So then that total for the Board of Ed share of the premium for Dr. Hill would equal $29,622.19.
Gotcha. What does it mean to decline coverage, though?
So he either elects to have insurance through Windsor Board of Ed, and then we enroll him on the medical and dental plan, or he declines coverage, so then Windsor Board of Ed does not have to pay the amount of money for claims that himself, his spouse, and his children would use throughout the school year, or throughout the school year, from July 1 to June 30th.
So in other words, that 29,622 disappears from the BOE budget and goes, well, comes off the medical line item and goes where? Direct payment to Dr. Hill?
That depends on the contract. So currently, the contract language is 50% of it goes towards compensation. So in 23-24, he declined coverage, which he put into the Board of Ed president by June of last school year per contract. And so that payment is made in equal installments over the 26 pays.
Yeah, so what does it mean to decline coverage and take 100% of the current cost? In other words, decline the coverage that would cost the town $29,000 and just
Correct.
take the $29,000 himself and self-insure, basically?
Correct.
All right, so it's a wash for the taxpayers.
Correct.
So you're just gambling. No, in all seriousness, it's just like, if my employer told me, listen, I'm constantly, I get medical through my company. It costs my company X dollars. Let's just pretend it costs $29,622, just arbitrarily. And they say, James, instead of health insurance, we're going to give you a flat extra $29,622. But man, if you get a $250,000 bill, sucks to be you. That's what we're saying here, right? Equal wash to the taxpayers?
No, because he can buy his own insurance.
with something else.
That's his problem, though.
No, I'm just saying, he can buy insurance.
Totally. Yeah,
For a lot more than 29, I'm sorry.
that's
For
his
a lot
problem.
more than 29,000. Cobra
Right.
is
But hang on, the liability to the taxpayers is equal either way, right?
correct.
Whatever. Okay.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay, if you could call the roll.
Jill Cantor,
No.
David Fury,
Yes?
Jeremy Halleck,
No.
Anthony King,
Yes.
Leonard Lockhart,
Yes.
James Madison,
Yes.
Paul Panos,
No.
Ayanna Taylor,
Yes.
Nathan Wolston,
Yes.
That is 6 yeses, 3 nos, 0 abstentions.
Motion carries 6-3. Is there another motion?
Yes. Mr. President, I move to take 50% of the current costs under fringe benefits as pensionable salary and the other 50% to reimburse the superintendent for his mandatory TRB, Teachers Retirement Board, contributions and increase his annuity payment with the remainder.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Lockhart. Any discussion from the Democrats? Any discussion? Mr. Madison?
Dumb new guy, what does this mean?
Ms. Batchelder?
So what does TRB mean? So Teacher Retirement Board?
Just the overall financial, I'm going for the taxpayers. What is the final effect in the budget? Like the previous item?
Again,
Wash.
nothing. This
Right.
is just saying how Dr. Hill will receive that money
But walk me
or
through
benefit.
it. Yep, that's where I'm going, but just help me get there.
So 50% of that benefit, so $14,811.09 will go towards, will be pensionable towards his salary. So that would be paying into TRB. And then the remaining 50%, which is $14,811.09, would be a reimbursement back to Dr. Hill for up to $14,811.09 of his TRB contribution for the school year 24-25
Right, but if it's a wash for the taxpayers, where is that 29 and change today?
in the health insurance line item.
It's the same money.
It's the same money.
So now we're just chopping it up,
Right.
but it still doesn't cost taxpayers another penny.
Correct. This is just
Okay.
contract language at this point.
All right. You see where I'm going? Listen, I'm a cheap-ass Republican. All I want to know is how much it's cost the taxpayers.
Any other discussion? You could call the roll.
Jill Cantor,
No.
David Fury,
Yes?
Jeremy Halleck,
No.
Anthony King,
Yes.
Leonard Lockhart,
Yes.
James Madison,
Yes.
Paul Panos, Paul Panos,
No. I'm sorry, no.
Ayanna Taylor,
Yes.
Nathan Wolston,
Yes.
That is 6 yeses, 3 nos, 0 abstentions.
So the motion carries 6-3. Is there another motion?
And is, I move to authorize the Board of Education president to increase the superintendent's base salary by 3%.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Lockhart. Any discussions from the Democrats? Seeing none, any discussion by the Republican members? Seeing and hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Alexis?
Jill Cantor,
No.
David Fury,
Yes.
Jeremy Halleck,
No.
Anthony King,
Yes.
Leonard Lockhart,
Yes.
James Madison,
No.
Paul Panos,
No.
Ayanna Taylor,
Yes.
Nathan Wolston,
Yes.
That is 5 yeses, 4 noes, 0 abstentions.
Motion carries 5-4. Any other motions? Seeing and hearing none. The next point is announcements. Mr. King, any announcements?
I have none, thank you.
Mr. Madison,
No, thank you.
Mr. Wollaston, Ms. Cantor,
None, thank you.
Mr. Lockhart,
No, thank you.
Mr. Halleck.
No announcements, I just would like to correct the record from our last meeting. I did say that Brookline School I was having PTO meetings in July and August. That is not correct. Their next PTO meeting will be though on September the 2nd. So I apologize for that error, but I just wanted to correct that record.
Okay, thank you.
No announcements.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
I just want to thank my caucus for making the process as efficient as possible, and I'm excited that Dr. Hill will be with us to get my babies through. Thank you.
Mr. Panos?
No.
Any announcements? I have no announcements myself. Thank you, Dr. Hill, and for your staff staying as late here and negotiating with virtual and non-virtual, which seems like we always struggle with. And looking for the last motion of the day.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh, well, Mr. Pan.
Motion, motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900. We are adjourned at 9:25.